All right, we might get started. It is 12 on the dot. Thank you everyone for attending this Pick My Project webinar. This is the fourth webinar that we have done for the voting stage of Pick My Project. Today you are speaking to Andrew. I'm from the community engagement team and I'll be running us through the presentation. It's really important just that we note at the start of this presentation that the webinar is recorded. We record it and keep it on file. Depending on the quality of the webinar, the audio quality and the visual quality, we'll be making this available through our website and through our social media. So just be aware of that when you're speaking to your microphones. And we'll try to do our best not to use your full names if that's a particular issue for you. Whoops, someone's microphone's on. Let me just mute all the microphones just to protect the quality of the sound recording. So I guess firstly, congratulations. You have made it through to the voting stage of Pick My Project. We had about 90% of the projects that were submitted get through at this stage, which is fantastic. So there's heaps and heaps of advocacy and grassroots promotion happening all around the state right now, and it will continue for the next 4 weeks. But well done. It's a pretty exciting stage for us in terms of seeing exactly how you get out there and get the word out about your projects. Now, this is a webinar, so a bit of webinar housekeeping. The first thing we're going to do is to run through some information, so a little bit of a presentation, and then we'll have some time to answer questions. So for the first part of this recording, everyone's microphone, except for mine, will be muted, and that's just to make sure that we prevent lots of background noise, rustling of papers, ringing of phones, all that kind of stuff from being part of the recording. At any point, you can chat in the chat function or raise your hand. There is a raise hand tool available also to you, which look like those two graphics at the bottom of the screen there. Just to make sure that the chat function is working for people, could people just try putting in their postcode for me? Great. Excellent. All right, good. So that seems to be working for everyone. Heaps of postcodes there. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for doing that. Okay, so I guess actually just on that, so there is one chat comment in there about not having a camera or a microphone. Don't worry, if you do have a question, pop it in the chat function and we'll try and get to it when we have the question time. So in terms of the structure of this webinar, we're going to try and spend the first 10 minutes covering the voting process because we know that you have a lot of questions about the voting process. Then we'll spend about 10 minutes on how to promote your project, how to get the word out. And then what we found is you generally want to ask a lot of questions. So we've allowed a big chunk of time for Q&A. We'll see how we go with that. And this next slide is really just a reminder of where we're up to in the process. So you can see that we're halfway. We had the ideas submission stage in May through to July. And then in July, the team here at Pick My Project had a really intense month of looking at all of your incredible ideas and assessing them against the eligibility criteria. And that's led us to this stage, stage 3, which is the voting stage. And that is open from the 13th of August through to 5 p.m. on the 17th of September. This particular stage in the process includes 2 really key activities. The first is the statewide promotion, and that's taken care of by the Pick My Project team. That's when we, do lots of posts on social media, in print media, through the radio, and get out and around the state to talk to people about Pick My Project. And the other really important activity is the grassroots promotion and advocacy work that you all can do to garner the votes for your particular project. So that's the 2 really key steps. We obviously can't promote any specific project, so we promote the process instead, and we're relying on you to get out there and spruik your wonderful ideas. As a reminder, what happens after the 17th of September is that we select the projects that have been successful, and that is primarily based on the number of votes that each project has received from within a partnership area. So that happens in late September, and then what we expect to happen after that is through October and November for us to be going through those more formal funding agreements with partner organisations and the funding body, so state government, to identify, the KPIs, the milestones, the payment structure, and the reporting requirements for each particular project. So if that continues through from October and November, we'd expect to start seeing projects being delivered around December. And then 12 months on from that, they need to be completed. So that's kind of where we're up to. We're halfway. And like I said, it's a really exciting stage for us to see all the incredible ways that you're going to get out there and promote your projects. All right, but before we get into that, we did want to talk a little bit about voting because, we know that you have a lot of questions about this. So the voting process is online and it is through our website, so through pickmyproject.vic.gov.au. Similarly to the way that we made the ideas submission open to all Victorian residents over 16, voting is also open to all Victorian residents over 16. So that's why there's an important step of putting your age into the registration form. Registering requires you to have, I guess, 3 things, and we use these to help verify people to make sure that you are a human and a Victorian as opposed to a robot. The 3 things that you require is a unique email address, a unique mobile phone number, and your residential street name and postcode. Okay, now help is available if you don't have a unique email address or a unique mobile phone number, and you can get help by calling the contact centre, so 1-800-797-818. There'll be more details coming out actually. We're releasing a kind of simplified process for supporting these people who don't have email and mobile, and details about that will be coming out hopefully tomorrow or by midweek. Okay, in terms of running through the voting process itself, essentially it includes 3 simple steps. So the first step in the voting process is to jump onto our website and register with your details, or log in if you've already registered. It's important that you do that. And remember that when you give us your residential street address and your postcode, when you register, that doesn't constrain what you do in step 2, okay? So we want your residential street name and postcode as part of checking that you are a Victorian resident. It won't constrain the area that you can vote in. Choosing the area you'd like to vote in is step 2, which is setting your location, and you can do that by typing in a specific address or just by typing in a suburb. So you choose your location, and then using that information, the system will pop up all the projects around the location you've chosen, and you'll be able to browse those and choose the projects in that local area that you think are worthy of voting for, the ones that you would like to see funded. The third and final step is basically to finalise your favourite 3 local projects and to submit your vote. So you have to choose 3 projects from a local area to vote. You can shortlist up to 6, so essentially you can jump in and grab a bunch of ones that you really like and then whittle that down later. But in order to vote, you will have to have 3 local projects to submit. And just a note again, you don't have to vote where you live. You can choose another local community that you are connected to. So we know that lots of Victorians might live in one area but be super passionate about an area where they volunteer or they work or where they holiday. So we wanted to give you some flexibility to choose the location to vote in. So you don't have to vote where you live. You can choose a local community that you are connected to. Okay, so about the voting area, we talk a little bit about voting area. So that's the area that you nominate that you'd like to vote in. Within that area, you will see a minimum of 30 projects, okay? So everyone gets at least 30 projects to choose from before they vote. When you're in a regional environment, there'll be a big circle on the map. I'll just flick to it actually. this is kind of what it looks like when you pop in a location and choose map view, but everyone has a radius around the spot where they drop their pin or the location that they choose. So within that circle, you will always have at least 30 projects, okay? For regional voters, that circle will be at least 50 kilometres big, all right, around that chosen location. For metro voters, that circle will be at least 5 kilometres big. Now, what that means is that if there are more than 30 projects in that 50K circle for regional voters, you'll see all those projects. And the same for metro. If there are more than 30 projects, you'll see all of them within that 5 kilometre circle. But if there are less than 30 projects, that circle will expand until you can see 30 projects, all right? So that's why it's a minimum or a default of 50 and 5Ks, and that's how it looks. All right, so in terms of deciding your vote, you do have to vote for 3 projects, and all of those projects have to be within that voting area. Now, you can tweak that voting area, you can move it around to kind of fit in the projects that you like, but all the projects that you choose to vote for will have to be in that circle. Like I said before, you can save up to 6 projects in your shortlist before you decide on your favorite 3. And also because you're registering before you start browsing, your shortlist will be saved, and so you'll be able to jump back in later if you don't want to make a decision now, if you want to go ask some questions or have a think about it, or whatever you want, you can come back and finalize your shortlist later. And the other thing important to note is that all votes are of equal value. It's not preferential in any way. It's simply 3 votes for 3 projects, or a vote for 3 projects, okay? In terms of submitting your vote, the final thing you have to do is submit the vote. Now, to do that, you'll press the Vote Now button, and then the system will send you a code via SMS to your mobile phone number, which is why we require everyone to have a unique mobile phone number. It's an important part of our verification process. Basically, you input the 4-digit code that your mobile phone receives, and then your vote will be submitted. Okay, now we know that some people don't have a mobile phone, or it won't be necessarily available at the time that they would like to vote. If that's the case, just need to call our contact centre on 1-800-797-818, and they'll be able to support you in that process. Okay, and this is just a little reminder for a slide that we had in the previous round of engagement. Basically, it's important to remember that you're not competing against all of Victoria in terms of your votes. You're only competing with the other projects that are in your partnership area. Now, there are 6 metro partnership areas and 9 regional partnership areas. $15 million has been attributed to those metro areas, and $15 million has been attributed to the regional areas. Each partnership area has at least $1 million, okay? And the rest of the money is topped up based on population, okay? So in every partnership area, there is at least $1 million to play with, which means that more than one project, for sure, more than one project can get up after the voting phase is completed. We have some rules in place to protect particularly small and medium-sized towns, and you'll see these in the FAQs if you do jump onto our website. We have a rule that says that no more than half of the funding can go to one local government area. So each partnership area has between 3 and 6 local governments in it. And so particularly to protect regional and rural Victoria, we're saying that no more than half of the funding can go to, say, the rural city of X, which protects small towns from that kind of rural city or regional city or greater city, because they're often their own local government areas. We have another rule which basically says that no more than half of the funding can go to one project category. So we want to see a spread in each partnership area of different types of projects so that there's something there for everybody, basically. And so those rules are there to help protect the voting in terms of spatial. We don't want to see a concentration of votes in rural cities or metropolitan areas. And we don't want to see also a cluster of projects just around one particular type. So those rules are there for us to switch on if we're seeing a bias in the system. We're not sure if we'll have to switch them on yet or not, because this is a pilot year, but they're there just in case we need them down the track. And just a reminder, this is what the partnership areas look like. If you want to find the one that you're in, if you don't know already, jump onto pickmyproject.vic.gov.au, go into the details section. You can look at the partnership areas, and you can type in your suburb or your town, and it will take you through, tell you a little bit about the partnership area, the councils that are involved, and the strategic priorities that are in place for that particular area. So a resource there for you to have a look at if you haven't already. Okay, another resource that's on the website, which is really important to have a look at, and what we're going to focus on for the rest of this webinar, is the how to promote PDF. So essentially, we're going to cover off on this over the next 10 minutes or so, but it's basically just a little bit of advice for you on how to get the word out about your particular project. Okay, so just it's broken into 4 different categories. The 4 different categories are Get Social, Think Local, People Power, and Drop In. And we'll just go through those very briefly. The first one is Get Social. So when we say Get Social, what we actually mean is, utilize the power of the digital and social networks and your digital and social channels. All right. So the easiest way, to do that is to jump onto your project page. Okay, your project idea has a unique web page on the Pick My Project website, and in there you'll see that there is a link which you can use to share your project across your social network. So you can click the chain, and that will give you a link which you can copy into emails or SMSs, or pop it in discussion forums or wherever you'd like. There's also the Facebook button. So if you press that, it will take you through to your Facebook page. It will pre-populate a nice post for you, all about your project, and you can tweak the wording on that and submit it throughout your network and encourage others to do the same. The other bit of advice about social networks is that things happen very rapidly in the digital world. So don't forget to post or share regularly through your networks. There's lots of other information going on all the time there, so it's easy for people to see your post and then kind of put it in the back of their mind and not think about it and get distracted by whatever else that's going on in the world that's mad, or the latest funniest cat picture. So share and post regularly. You've got 4 weeks left, so once or twice a week, put something out there to remind people to jump on if they haven't already and vote for your project. If you're struggling for wording, start with one of our Facebook posts. So we're doing regular posts as well to remind people about the process. So you feel free to grab our words and tweak them or change them to reflect your own unique message. That would be you're very welcome to do that. And the other thing to remember is that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in social media, I think that's definitely true. So don't forget to use not only words to describe your wonderful project idea, but also images. You can include videos. You can make these fun things called boomerangs, which I suggest that you have a look up. Memes, lots of different things. So jump on there and be creative, have some fun with it. The next category of information is Think Local. So this is about getting the word out in your local area. One of the ways we've tried to make this easy for you is by creating a blank DL flyer, which you can access on the resources and videos section of our website, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. You can use that DL flyer to print with your project name and then distribute that out to your communities, kind of like little postcard size things, and you can put them in places that community go to encourage them to vote for your particular project. In terms of distributing those or getting more local support, we'd suggest that you talk to local businesses, local cafes or corner stores, places that get a lot of foot traffic, and talk to the owner or the manager of that store or business about whether they would be happy to be kind of an ambassador for your project idea. If it's something they can get excited about and get behind and share the word, that's really powerful for your project. And also think about what kinds of other displays or communication channels are available to you. So are there local community boards that the neighbourhood house have, or that is out the front of your Australia Post branch, or out the front of your supermarket or school? What newsletters are available that you might be able to put something in? Or are there any local events happening between now and the 17th September that you could get a little bit of space in, or walk around and hand out those DL flyers and talk to people and engage people about your great idea? So think about those local resources and what you can do to really make best use of them. I guess in a similar vein, think about the people that you know and how to really make best use of them as well. So probably one of the most obvious resources you should have available to you is your partner organisation. So don't forget to talk to your partner organisation to help you spread the word about your project. They might have some communication channels or strategies or some advice that they can certainly pass on. There's nothing more powerful than the word of mouth also. So make sure you talk to your friends, family, your neighbours and colleagues about your idea and encourage them to help you get the word out there. You set them a challenge and get them to reporting to you, weekly about how many conversations they've been able to slip the word, pick my project into, and encourage them, maybe gamify it for them. The other thing you can do is to host an event. So you can collaborate with other Pick My Project applicants that are in the area and host an event in your local neighbourhood to support people who perhaps can't vote or won't vote on their own. People love a good barbecue. So things like that you can do to help get people excited about your particular idea. And the last thing is, don't forget to check in on when the Pick My Project team will be around the state near you. We're hosting a range of events and drop-in sessions throughout this month and September, and we're there to help. So definitely, if you're talking to people and they're saying, oh, it's a bit hard, or I don't completely understand, jump onto the events page or onto our Facebook events page on Facebook and check out when we're going to be near you. We're happy to help you. If you can't find a location near you, or you've missed it because it was last week, definitely call our contact centre team. We're available through business hours to help via phone, and you can email us at any time and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. They're there also to help you, particularly if you're having trouble with language or technical issues, or if you need support with that email or mobile phone requirement. In terms of getting a message across, we just wanted to give you a little bit of advice around kind of storytelling. Obviously, a compelling story is one that gets people's attention. That's why it's compelling. So we want you all to be telling a great narrative. Some of the most common kinds of narratives you might wrap around your project is that it's a first. Lots of projects that are in the system are breaking new ground for local communities. They're trying something that's never been tried before, or something has been tried before, but they're doing it in a very different way. So tell your story about the first, the way that it is first for its community, the way that it's innovative. Your project might also be trying to fix a problem. So it might be a narrative around solutions. Has this problem been in the community for quite a while? It's been tried to be fixed before and failed. Is there a nice story you can tell around your project that will help get people to understand what you're trying to do? The other thing to think about is virality. Most people have kind of heard of this idea of things going viral, and it's very much a social media phenomenon. So if you jump online, you'll be able to see so many different ways that stories are told in kind of creative, funny and very quick ways. Heaps of parodies on YouTube, lots of quick things on Vine, heaps of memes. There's so much stuff out there. So have a look on social media in the way that stories are told in creative, funny and quick ways, and think about whether there's something that you can do that's similar that might help you go viral. And whatever you do, remember simplicity is really key. So keep your messages very simple, very short, and use plain English. Also think about who your target audiences might be. So you might have a range of different target audiences, and they might have different communication needs. So, if you're talking to time-poor people, you might want to be very instructional. This is the 3 things you need to do to get this done. If you're talking to youth, you might need to think creatively, include some energy, or really answer the what's in it for me question. Or you might be talking to the elderly, in which case you might want to spend a bit more time explaining the process, because these kinds of processes are very new. So think about your target audience, think about their communication needs, and definitely keep your messaging as simple as possible. Okay, other things to think about. I guess this is really important to kind of understand. You know, Pick My Project is about grassroots community development work. It's meant to be kind of friendly competition. So it's really important to just highlight the fact that we're not permitting or encouraging incentives or prizes as part of your promotional activities. If we discover that you are providing incentives or prizes, you can actually be disqualified. If you want to see more information on this, jump onto the frequently asked questions section of our website. It's there for you to read quite clearly. The other thing to think about is, what are the ways that you can promote that are really inclusive and help you build local relationships rather than compromise local relationships. It's really important just to reflect on the fact that, this voting process runs until September, but your local community will be with you and around you and potentially supporting your project for much longer than that. So, think about what you're doing through the promoting phase and whether that's likely to negatively influence or upset community members. And if it is going to do that, really have a good think about whether that's something that you want to do. And whatever you can do to be inclusive and collaborative is probably better than, hyper competitive or divisive. Let's keep it really, really friendly. The other thing to really note is that, if you're spamming or criticizing or providing any misleading information about projects or about Pick My Project, that's not really in the spirit of things either. What we're really trying to get people to do is to discuss the way the government spends money, deliberate over the things that are really important in their local areas, and empower people to help us make decisions about the way the money is spent. So discussion, deliberation, and empowerment are really the kind of cornerstones of Pick My Project. So try and keep in the spirit of that if you can. Most of you, I haven't heard anything bad yet, but it's just really important that we do be clear on those. In terms of other resources and support that are available to you between now and the 17th of September, our contact centre is always there between business hours for further advice about the process, for help with using the website, or for support in different languages. So feel free to use our translation services. They're there and they're a really important resource. Jump onto our website if you need access to information and resources. It's where you can download all the promotional advice and materials that we have available. And there are more coming as well, including a how to vote video, which I think will be really, really helpful. The guidelines are there. It's obviously where you can browse and vote for projects or find out about community events that are happening near you. You can also use our Facebook page, so facebook.com/pickmyproject. You can post comments, ask questions. It's a great place to talk about campaigning or promotion strategies and to get really collaborative responses. There might be someone who's trying to answer the same kind of question out there, so it's a great way to put the question out into the universe and see what the universe comes back with. And the same kind of things relevant to the community events. So you're very welcome to come along to learn more, to get support, and to meet some like-minded community members and groups as well. We definitely recommend that you do that. Okay, so that takes care of the formal presentation. So what we might do now, I'm just going to switch on the chat function. We haven't got any raised hands. Don't forget that if you'd like to ask a question, I guess live, you can always raise your hand. But I'll just start with the questions at the top of the chat and we'll see how we go. So the first question or statement or question is, we have some complaints about voting for people in areas with no or poor reception and from people who have only one email address and share a mobile. Is there any news on what is being done to allow them to vote? So yes, there is a bit of news. I guess the first thing to note though is that for areas that have no or poor reception, there's not much that we can do about the reception except encourage you to find a library or a neighbourhood house or another community space that has potentially Wi-Fi or access to computers. So definitely, have a look around and see what's available in your local area. A lot of places now support people by providing free Wi-Fi. In terms of people sharing an email address or a mobile phone, currently you do need to have a unique email address, but that we'll have some additional support coming out for people who don't have an email address this week. Okay, so like the Facebook page if you haven't already, because that's probably the best way to access that information once it's available. But I would expect us to be able to to share with you the process that we're going to unfold tomorrow or Wednesday. So yes, there is some support coming for people. Currently, if you need help with mobile phones, you can call the contact center and we can help you with that. But there's some additional support coming for email addresses this week. Okay, the next question we have here. So we have a question, will you be emailing us all about changes to the voting process so we can pass the info on to our potential voters, some of whom do not use technology? Yes, if you are registered on the website to receive emails, you should be getting an email from us this week with that information. But like I said just before, make sure you've liked our Facebook page as well, because then you'll be notified immediately of any posts that we put up about this. So that would definitely be a good thing to do if you haven't already. The next question is, what does all votes of equal value mean? So all the projects that you vote for are of equal value. There's no preference to the voting. Voting 1, 2, 3 is not in rank. They just get 3 equal votes. Okay, some people have some questions about age groups being tech savvy. Yep, look, it's an online process and it is the first year that we've run an online voting process. So there will be some people in the community who find this a difficult process. It is a pilot. We're trying to make it as easy as we can for people, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are a whole bunch of things that we can learn from this round and implement some changes for next year. But all I can encourage you to do is to try and support the people in your communities who are struggling with the voting process, and keep tuned for some information coming up this week about what happens if you don't have an email address or a mobile phone. Yep, great. So some advice there basically saying that a community house in someone's local area is very happy to help people. The advice that we've had from neighbourhood houses to date is that they are happy for people to come in and use their computers and to be shown the process. And this week there will be video coming out about how to vote. So that will also be very, very helpful for people. There's another question. Is there any way to know how our campaigns are doing during the voting stage? For example, how many votes we have received to date? So you won't be able to see the number of votes that you have received. What you can do is do things like, if you post a Facebook post, you'll be able to see how many people have actually clicked through your Facebook post to go to the Pick My Project website. So you can see that in your Facebook Insights. We won't be publicising the vote count live. We just simply don't have the technological capacity to do that. But we will make all of the number of votes that every project has received available after the voting stage has closed. So that will definitely be available to you, but not during the voting stage. There is a question about making this PowerPoint available through email. I don't think we'll be emailing the PowerPoint out, just because it does have a few graphics in it and it is a larger file and it will get lots of bounce backs. But we will make a PDF of this PowerPoint available on the website. There's already one up, but we've added some stuff around voting, so we'll have that updated to include this. Okay, there's another question around voting where you live. So the question is, you said you don't have to vote where you live. You can choose a local community you want to vote for. How does that work? So step one is to register, and that's when you provide us with your residential address. Step two is to browse projects. Now, when you browse projects, if you click on the suburb that is identified, you'll be able to change that. So you just at the top of the screen, you click suburb that's there. So it might be that you're in Coburg. So you just need to click Coburg. It'll come up with a screen with a map on it. You can write in your suburb or address that you would like to vote in or to explore. And you just put that in, then confirm that location, and then it will change so that all the projects you're seeing are around that new location. Okay, the other thing you can do is if you're looking at a project that's outside of your area, if you press outside of your area, you'll be able to update your location and add it to your shortlist also. Okay, another question. Will we know who voted for us after the voting is over? That's a really good question. I'm actually not sure if you will be able to see who voted or not. So we might have to make that take that question on notice and pop up an FAQ on the website about that one. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. All right, another question. How do we know how to get in contact with other projects that we'd like to collaborate with? So if you're seeing other projects that you think are, superstars, definitely you can contact them by using the comments section of on their project page. So once you've registered, you can leave comments. So that's probably the only way that we can really advocate for you doing that. Otherwise, maybe do a Facebook search. If they've put a Facebook post out that's public, you might be able to do a Facebook search for their project name. It might come up. But probably the surest way to do it is through the comments section of the project page on the website. Okay, another question, another comment about voting being unfair because it doesn't allow for tech-savvy people to vote. Look, yep, there'll be some learnings from this particular process, but the whole driver behind this particular process is essentially to get people more comfortable with the online space, to get people online, to engage online. So that is kind of a driver of this. So we'd love people to be encouraged to actually get online and have a bit of fun with the voting process. So hopefully that's something that you can talk through with people in your community who might not be comfortable with the process. Another question about location. Are you able to change the location of the project address? No, at this stage you can't move the projects. The projects are where you nominated that they would be during the application stage. We can't move those now, I'm sorry. And the next question is, can any Victorian resident vote for our project regardless of where in Victoria they live? That's right. So if when they register, they give us their residential address, but then where they choose to vote is completely up to them. So you can send them a link to your project through the direct link or through Facebook. They can have a look at it. If they think it's worth voting for, they can jump in, update their location, find 2 other projects in that area that they'd also like to vote for, and then submit their vote in your location. Another question about the winning votes, the winning projects, sorry. So yes, the successful projects will be based on the number of votes that you get, but there are some other rules, the rules of no more than half, which I explained a little bit earlier. Like I said, those rules will only be switched on if we're seeing a bias in particular partnership areas. If you want to see what those are, I recommend you jump onto the FAQ section of the website, just because time is kind of running out. So I'd like to get through the questions, but yeah, jump onto the website. The rules are basically no more than half can go to any one category or one local government area. Question about checking votes received to date. You won't be able to check how many votes you've received to date. The information on voting numbers will be available at the end of the process, so after the 17th of September. Okay, another question about partner organisations and promotion. Is it okay if a local council is a partner organisation and they want to use their Facebook to promote, over other projects in the partnership region? That is essentially a question that councils need to answer. Every council will be different. I imagine that most councils are similar to us in state government in the sense that we won't be promoting particular projects, but each council can make their own decision on that. So it's probably worth, if your partner organisation is your local council, having a chat to your local council about what they intend to do, if they're going to promote everything or just the few that they're partnering for. That's completely up to them. Next question is about funding. How does a project get funded? What if a project asking for $200,000 gets 200 votes, but then two projects asking for $85,000 get 150 votes? So the projects that are successful is based on the number of votes that you get. That's probably the simplest way to answer that. So we will keep adding projects to the mix based on how many votes they get until we reach the voting cap, the funding cap for each partnership area. So it's not number of projects, it's dollar amounts. And we just keep adding projects to that pool of successful projects until we reach the funding amount. There is some information on the FAQs about that also. All right, a question about voting outside of your local area. So regarding voting outside your area, can you vote for two different areas though in one vote? So one project where you live in Melbourne, but then one where you grew up in Swan Hill. No, you need to select 3 projects for voting from one local area. So if you're strongly connected to, for example, to Melbourne and to Swan Hill, you would need to browse through all the projects around you in Melbourne and Swan Hill, then pick either Melbourne or Swan Hill and spend all of your vote in that area. So all your projects need to come from that one area. Okay. Next question, are people limited to 3 votes in total? Can they vote in more than one regional partnership? So I guess it's a similar question. You're limited to 1 vote, and that 1 vote is for 3 projects. So you have to include 3 projects in that vote, and they all have to be from that same radius, so that same voting area. That's not constrained by partnership area. It's just basically the 30 projects that are closest to you, at least, that you'll see. But you'll have to choose from that partnership, from that local area, sorry. So the 3 projects must come from within that radius. Okay, another question about how do you know how your campaign is going? Probably the easiest way to do that is just to be, like I said, checking the conversion rate, they call it. Basically, people who are coming through from, say, a Facebook post that you've done and clicking through into the Pick My Project website. You'll be able to see how successful it is through that. But we won't be able to make the kind of running total of your project votes available through the voting process. The technology simply won't do that. That might be something that we look at for future years. Another question, how are all these questions going to be answered? I think that's what we've been taking care of. So we're actually nearly there. So that's good. The next question from Kirsty is, will this run next year? The answer is we really, really hope so. It does depend on how this pilot year goes, but I mean, what we've seen so far is very positive. So fingers crossed, we'll be back to help everyone, access community grants in many years to come. So we'll just kind of have to see how that goes, but fingers crossed. The last question that's here at the moment is, if you're using your phone and registering on Facebook, do you get notifications on Facebook or your email? i.e., you may not have an email on phone. Is it phone notification or email notification? So if you're registering on Facebook, I think that's it. If you register via email, you get an email to your inbox asking you to verify. I think if you register using Facebook, you won't get that. So that's kind of how that works. I don't think you'll get notifications on Facebook unless you've liked our Pick My Project page. I don't think it's as advanced as that, but I haven't seen that happen yet anyway. If you don't have email on your phone, I think, yeah, well, I think if you do register on Facebook, you don't need to worry about getting emails. But you will still need to worry about the mobile phone verification. So hopefully you do get SMSs on your phone, and that won't be a problem when you go to vote. All right, so it's 1:45. We've got a little bit of time left. Are there any other questions? Feel very free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask it live, or pop it in the chat section if you'd like to have me read it out. Yeah, so another question come through. Can you vote just once? That's right, it's one vote per person, and that vote is for 3 projects. Yep, so you can only vote once. Any others? Great. Okay. Well, we might leave it there for now. I guess just again, if you do have other questions that you would like to. Oh, sorry. There's a question that's come through. Can you vote for just one project? No, you have to choose 3 projects in order to vote. There aren't any limitations on how you can advertise, except for that what I said before around providing incentives or prizes. We reserve the right to basically make your project ineligible if you are providing incentives or prizes for people voting for your project. The only other limitations are essentially, complying with with local laws. That would probably be a good idea for everybody, just in life generally. So yes, if you do have other questions, make sure that you jump on to any of these resource channels. So the contact center, Pick My Project website, our Facebook page, or come and see us at a live event. If not, thank you so much for your time. We can't wait to kind of hopefully meet you on the road or see all your incredible efforts in terms of getting out there and getting your votes. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry, one more question's come through. That's right. Michael, you don't have to live where you vote. You just have to be connected to that community in some way, and you can change that. So lovely. Look, thank you so much, everyone. If you do have any other questions, I do recommend that you jump onto the FAQ section of the website and check out the answers that are there. Check out the resources section of the website also for other ways that you might be able to get the word out or for things that you might want to download. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you at a workshop very soon. The workshop content is very, very similar. So if you feel like this webinar has done the job for you and you're able to get out there and get the word out, fantastic. But if you do have more questions or you just want to see what we look like, feel free to pop into a workshop. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.